You think sumo is an ancient sport of honor and dignity, enormous men in a sacred ring, crowds cheering, centuries of tradition. The postcards make it look spiritual. The reality makes it look like a very large person's very bad life choices, except they never got to make the choices themselves. Today we go through all 8 chapters of life as a feudal Japanese sumo wrestler, and we promise you will appreciate your current body weight by the end. Chapter 1. The Selection. Your first terrible detail, you did not choose this. This was chosen for you by your genetics at birth. Sumo training schools did not run open auditions. They recruited boys from desperately poor farming families who happened to be born abnormally large by the standards of medieval Japan, a country where the average adult male stood around 5 feet tall and weighed not very much. If a peasant farmer noticed that his 10-year-old son was already eating the annual rice budget of an entire neighboring village and still growing, the math became simple. The boy went to a heiya, a sumo training compound, and the boy's father received payment. From that moment, the child belonged entirely to an oyakata, the master trainer and owner of the school, and his personal future effectively ceased to exist as a concept. Chapter 2. House Slave. You think being accepted into a sumo school means immediate respect and legendary meals? You thought wrong. The junior wrestlers at the bottom of the ranking system are, without meaningful exaggeration, unpaid domestic servants for everyone ranked above them. Your day begins at 5 in the morning, and it does not begin with breakfast because eating before training is not permitted at the lower ranks. You train on an empty stomach until your legs stop working reliably. Then, the actual misery begins. Junior wrestlers cook enormous quantities of food for the senior wrestlers, clean the training facility, scrub the seniors' backs in the communal bath, and launder the mawashi, the enormous cotton loincloths worn during training and competition. The mawashi cannot be washed with soap because of long-standing ritual superstition about removing accumulated luck from the fabric, meaning you are hand-washing these items in plain water and then hanging them to dry, while being fully aware of what they contain. You eat whatever the senior wrestlers leave behind, which is rarely very much because senior wrestlers are not known for their portion control. If any of this arrangement displeases you, the trainer's wooden rod is available to explain your position in the hierarchy. Chapter 3. Force Feeding. Now the diet. Sumo wrestlers needed to gain enormous body mass in feudal Japan during an era when beef and pork were under Buddhist religious prohibition across most of the country, which removed the most calorie-dense food options from the menu entirely. The solution was chankonabe, a dense, hot pot of fish, chicken, tofu, and seasonal vegetables consumed in quantities that the word large does not adequately describe, served alongside rice in volumes that would concern a modern nutritionist significantly. You are not eating this because you are hungry. You are being systematically overfed past the point of physical comfort as a professional obligation. The stomach stretches over time with consistent effort, and the training regimen is specifically designed to maximize that stretching. Immediately after these enormous forced meals, junior wrestlers sleep wearing special face coverings designed to slow metabolism and prevent the body from burning through the calories too quickly, converting as much of the intake as possible directly into body mass. You're not a person having lunch. You are a biological conversion system being operated by someone else. Chapter 4. The Training. The training itself operates on a philosophy that can be summarized as, if you are still standing, you are not finished yet. The primary drill is Butsukari Geiko, in which a junior wrestler takes a running start and throws himself repeatedly into the body of a much larger, much heavier senior wrestler over and over until the junior physically cannot get up anymore. The senior does not move significantly. the junior accumulates the damage of this arrangement entirely alone. The training floor is earthen and salted because salt has ritual purification significance in sumo. When you scrape the skin off your knees or back on this surface, which happens regularly and not occasionally, the salt ensures that the experience communicates itself clearly and immediately to every nerve ending in the affected area. Broken ribs were common and essentially unremarkable. Joint dislocations were treated by being pulled back into place and then trained through. There were no physicians in the compound, no antibiotics in feudal Japan, and no sick days in the sumo calendar. You either continued training or you left, and leaving meant returning to the poverty your family sold you out of in the first place. Chapter 5. Human Shield. If you survived the training long enough to actually compete, you were now a live entertainment product for wealthy regional lords, the daimyo, who bet serious money on bouts and kept successful wrestlers as status symbols in their personal retinues. There were no weight categories in feudal sumo. You, as a newer competitor, could be matched against a veteran twice your current mass without warning or apology. The approved techniques during this era included strikes with an open palm directly to the face, manipulation of fingers in ways that ligaments were not designed to accommodate, and various joint attacks that modern sumo has since banned specifically because they were causing consistent, severe damage. Historical accounts also record the use of sumo wrestlers as personal bodyguards for their daimyo patrons, which sounds impressive until you understand the practical reality. When an armed samurai assault happened, the sumo wrestler carrying no weapons and wearing no armor was expected to physically place his body between the attacker's sword or arrow and the daimyo. You are 150 kilograms of human shield with no metal between you and the blade. Chapter 6. The Body Problem. Being physically enormous in medieval Japan created daily practical problems that the sport's spiritual framing did not address or acknowledge. Japanese architecture of the period was designed around average Japanese body proportions, meaning door frames, ceiling heights, toilet facilities, and sleeping quarters all assumed a resident standing roughly 5 feet tall and weighing perhaps 130 pounds. Sumo wrestlers were living in buildings that were not designed for sumo wrestlers, and the architectural collision was constant and literal. Door frames delivered regular head injuries. Sleeping arrangements were incompatible with the actual dimensions of the person trying to use them. At higher weights, wrestlers physically could not reach certain parts of their own body for basic hygiene purposes. This was addressed by assigning junior wrestlers to assist senior ones with bathing and other personal care tasks. There was no dignity component built into this arrangement because dignity was not among the things the system was designed to produce. You were a large biological mechanism, and large biological mechanisms require maintenance, which was delivered by whoever was currently ranked below you in the compound hierarchy. Chapter 7. No personal life. When you imagine becoming a successful, recognized sumo wrestler, you might picture personal freedom as one of the rewards. You would be imagining incorrectly. Every wrestler in the school belonged to the oyakata, and that belonging extended to personal relationships. Marriage required explicit permission from the school master, who had operational reasons to prefer keeping wrestlers focused on the school rather than on outside obligations. Permission was not automatically granted and was often withheld for years. The practical reality of attempting a personal relationship while living in a communal male training compound, smelling of fermented training clothes, and industrial-scale food preparation, with no independent income and no private space, was itself a significant structural barrier even when permission existed in theory. The historical record on this point is unambiguous. Wrestlers lived in the compound, ate in the compound, trained in the compound, and spent their social lives almost entirely within the compound, emerging primarily for competitions and for occasional entertainment arranged by sponsoring patrons after successful bouts. Chapter 8. The Exit. Sumo wrestlers in the feudal era did not retire gracefully in their late 40s and transition into respected coaching roles. The body that made you valuable was the same body that was working against you from roughly your early 30s onward. The combination of extreme body weight, decade plus of skeletal and joint damage from training, and a dietary pattern specifically engineered to maximize fat accumulation produced predictable medical outcomes that arrived on a predictable schedule. Heart failure during sleep was a documented common cause of death among wrestlers who had reached the upper ranks. The dietary patterns that produced competitive body mass also produced blood sugar management problems that modern medicine would classify clearly and treat aggressively, but which feudal Japanese medicine addressed with limited tools. Infections from arena floor injuries, untreated through the early stages because continuing to train was mandatory, sometimes progressed to outcomes that are avoidable with antibiotics and genuinely not avoidable without them. If injury or illness ended your competitive career before the compound was finished with you, the school simply discharged you. There was no pension, there was no institutional support structure for former wrestlers, there was the road outside the compound gate, and whatever former champions could figure out from there. Historical accounts include former, celebrated wrestlers dying in poverty, unrecognized within years of their last competition. So the next time the gym feels difficult or the diet is uninspiring, remember the salt floor, the unwashed loincloth, the architectural door frames, and the feudal retirement plan. Your fitness journey ends considerably better than this one did. Subscribe and tell us in the comments who you think had it worse, the geisha or the sumo wrestler. The next victim is your choice. Comments are open.